An $80 million investment in the Hunters Catholic schools.
The region is growing, population's growing, the demand on our schools, the popularity of them seems to have never been greater.
The Maitland-Newcastle Diocese today announced plans to build 2 new high schools, one at Chisholm near Thornton and the other at Medowie, while its Year 7 to 10 schools at Lochinvar and Gateshead will be expanded to include Years 11 and 12.
We're really filling the last piece of a jigsaw here, and we're very thrilled to have the chance.
The diocese has been providing secondary education for more than 150 years, and this is part of the process of ensuring that we can do that well into the future.
Already some 18,000 Hunter students are enrolled in the Catholic school system. Once construction is complete, that number will jump to more than 20,000. And students won't just benefit from new facilities. The diocese says the changes will also extend to the classroom.
Yeah, well, learning today is not just confined to a particular classroom in a particular high school. There are varieties of ways in which students can engage in learning, and we've been embracing that.
The first of the 2 new schools is expected to open in 2018. Amanda Douglas, NBN News. Day 2 of the public hearing into T4 and Newcastle's Lord Mayor didn't hold back. Nuatali Nelms says there's too much inconsistency when it comes to developer contributions for large-scale projects.
Mum and dad developers doing small projects throughout the city are all paying their 1%, but projects that are going through the Planning Assessment Commission are not paying anywhere near that.
Council says it's being shortchanged on the $4.8 billion project. It says it's owed 1% of the capital investment. That's $48 million. But the planning department has recommended it be paid just $528,000.
We need a legally enforceable clause to seek a voluntary planning agreement or the 1%. Without that clause, council and the community are left hamstrung with not enough community dollars for the infrastructure this community needs.
Meanwhile, the Hunter Communities Network today voiced its opposition to the project, saying it's not needed.
T4 is just locking us into the same old dependency on coal. We've lost 4,000 jobs in the Hunter in the last 2 years. The coal industry is not the future for the Hunter region.
But local Terry Tynan believes T4 will provide employment security for young people. It's expected to create 1,500 jobs during construction and 80 once operational.
Many of my children's friends created their lives and raised their families as a result of that, and I think those opportunities are great. And I know that will continue in Newcastle, and I wish to see that opportunity be given to our future generations.
The project got the nod from the Planning Department last month, but also needs a green light from the Commission. Renee Feder, NBN News. It's back to the drawing board for the former Empire Hotel site, located in the heart of Newcastle's CBD. The plan for at least 25 affordable housing apartments on the Hunter Street block has now been abandoned, with the Hunter Development Corporation and proponent, the Newcastle First Consortium, unable to reach an agreement on the final contract.
It's always disappointing that you don't intend to set out for things not to happen, but it does happen in real estate, in property. This wasn't a simple deal to start with.
HDC is now looking to remarket the site and says while it would like to include affordable housing, it may no longer be a compulsory component for future development. Newcastle Council believes there's a real need for such housing in the city.
Like all growing cities around the world, housing affordability is very much an issue. So any development that does include affordable housing will be looked upon very favourably by Newcastle City Council.
HDC's General Manager is confident a new developer will be found soon, given the site's size and location.
We think it'll be well sought after. It's well located, it's close to the redeveloped Market Town Shopping Centre. It's right on one of the new connections that go through from Hunter Street through to Honeysuckle. It's close to a lot of other development that has taken place in recent times.
Renee Feder, NBN News.
may have had our differences from time to time, but one thing that's happens without fail every time is when we get on stage together. It's just we're like little school kids again, grinning at each other. It's just such a thrill.
What it shows is that people have really embraced the whole entertainment aspect to the Hunter.
"11 losses in their past 12 games have seen the Knights plummet down the NRL ladder, leading some fans to call for Rick Stone to be replaced.
It comes with the job, no doubt, the pressure and the expectation, particularly in this town. I'm pretty thankful for the support I've got. You know, got a lot of support from a lot of people right across, you know, this community.
Stone denies there's disharmony in his squad.
If people have got some information from inside the camp, I'm happy to hear it. But if a person is external of the camp, you know, I'm not too concerned with, to be honest.
This weekend, Newcastle will face a Titans side coming off a big loss to Manly, but the coach says that game will mean little come Saturday.
If you're not going to give each team some sort of credibility and respect, well, you're going to get burnt.
As for the players, Jared Mullen will be on light duties this week in an effort to play against Gold Coast, while a host of others could return, including Blues forward Beau Scott.
His shoulder seems all right and he should take his place. Chris Houston's another one, and maybe Adam Clydesdale's another one who potentially might be available, but we'll probably know, they probably won't get named, but we'll know about them a little bit later in the week.
Chanel Matautia didn't play against the Raiders after being named on an extended bench. He hasn't featured in the NRL this season, patiently biding his time in New South Wales Cup.
If you know me, I'm a calm type of bloke, you know, but at the moment I just got to stay positive and work hard.
My backhand was probably a bit slow, but I knew I just had to finish the race and just do as best as I could. And I was lucky enough to come out with the third place in the new Oceania record, so I'm really happy and stoked.
An excellent resort, good kids facilities, you know, just a spot on joint, I think, for the Celebrity Classic. And the golf course is not quite as difficult as the previous one.
In December last year, the New South Wales Supreme Court found the state government lacked the authority to cut Newcastle's heavy rail line. Today, in front of a packed courtroom, both the state government and Save Our Rail appealed different aspects of that ruling. Newcastle's rail advocates making their presence felt in Sydney. Upstairs, the first day of a complex two-day hearing was going ahead, all surrounding this, Section 99A of the Transport Administration Act, which says a rail infrastructure owner must not close a line unless authorised by an Act of Parliament. Most of the morning was taken up by the Hunter Development Corporation, which the government tried to transfer the rail corridor's ownership to last year. It argued that just because two stations have been taken off the route, that doesn't mean the rail line is closed. Justice Anthony Marr replied, "It depends if you look from the perspective of someone in Newcastle." HDC's barrister Tim Robertson also spent up to an hour reading lengthy definitions to argue the line wasn't closed but truncated, saying that if the Sydney line was stopped at Wynyard for repairs instead of going through to Central, you wouldn't say that it has been closed. But Save Our Rail has faith in its argument.
The railway, which was built and has been in existence since 1857, links the two major cities, that's Newcastle CBD and Sydney. So I'm pretty happy with that line of our argument.
The hearing will continue in the New South Wales Court of Appeal tomorrow, with a decision expected to be handed down in a matter of months.
It's one of the biggest developments in the Maitland-Newcastle Diocese 180-year history. Two new Catholic high schools, including one at Medowie. That move applauded by Port Stephens Labor MP Kate Washington.
The Diocese decision is based on demographics and demand. They've recognised exactly what my community's recognised for so many years, is that there is a need for additional secondary schooling.
But she says there's still demand for a public high school in the area.
Everyone deserves access to education, and access needs to come through the public system, and the state government is responsible for delivering that.
This piece of land next to Wirianda Public has been earmarked for a high school since 1983. Parents in the community have long campaigned for one to be built. Meanwhile, news of a secondary Catholic school at Chisholm has been welcomed by Maitland MP Jenny Atchison, but she too has taken aim at the Baird government.
The last Labor government actually set aside land for a high school at one stage. It is important that the government should be at the forefront of providing quality education choices for our community.
The Department of Education says its demographers constantly monitor changes in population and forecast the long-term effect on schools, including in the Port Stephens and Maitland areas. Renee Feder, NBN News.
An entire industry devastated. In April, cyclonic winds wiped out hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of the region's oysters. Some growers were left wondering if they would ever recover. 3 months on, Hunter Local Land Services has organised a meeting for farmers to provide much-needed advice as they work to rebuild their businesses.
They're meeting with the rural assistance people on Friday to because there are some anomalies or some areas that they're not sure of in their application for assistance.
Those recovering from the damage have access to grants of up to $15,000. The meeting is aimed at identifying ways to improve sustainability while creating the chance for growers to share ideas. Graham Demar's family has been in the business for 80 years, and while his farm suffered the worst damage it's ever seen, things are slowly starting to pick up, and there's hope others will follow suit.
They can get oysters in from other estuaries. That we also have a select oyster company which produces hatchery oysters, and they've offered to assist them to restock.
However, the biggest issue farmers are struggling to overcome following the storm: water pollution.
There's going to be a longer term effect if we don't get that water quality back.
Emma Murphy, NBN News.
Half the battle with mental illness is realising you've got a problem and seeking help. So if this sculpture helps get mental illness issues into the public domain and people think about it, know where they can go to for help, it's a great thing.
Rock bottom on the NRL ladder, but the hits keep coming for the Knights, this time from long-time league journalist Paul Kent.
There's too many players at Newcastle who are career players at Newcastle who aren't doing what they're paid to produce. Get rid of half a dozen of their most senior players, find what Newcastle's about. Because at the moment, they're pretending they know, they've got no idea.
The criticism comes after club legend Andrew Johns put in his 2 cents worth last month.
You put your body on the line and you have a go, and I got to say, I don't know if some of those players could look at themselves in the mirror and think, you know, I gave my all today.
Captain Kurt Gidley yesterday publicly backed his coach Rick Stone.
I think the coach has to play a part, okay? That's nice of Kurt to come out and support his coach.
Meanwhile, the players can't put their finger on what needs to be done to get back into the winner's circle.
I don't know, to tell the truth. If I knew, I think a lot of people would want my services.
Newcastle play the Titans this Sunday, who are coming off a hiding. Tyler Randall is looking forward to facing former Knight and good mate Chad Redman.
Yeah, it'll be good to play against Chad. We've played a lot of football together and I've never played against him. So yeah, there'll be a few text messages sent before the game, definitely.
Michael Kane, NBN News.
Didn't really get much work done and tried to find and sneak out to watch the footy, so I wasn't probably the best employee, but got to watch a lot of the footy.
At the moment, you know, that discussion's taking place and he may need one more game. But, you know, we've just got to confirm that tomorrow after we go through a training session. He's getting close, but we've got to be mindful still that he's still only young.
It's a great experience for them to be able to go and take a photo with the World Cup and see what the Diamonds and the other 15 competing countries will be playing for in August in Sydney this year.
The store is now a shadow of its former self, owned by Con Constantine, whose dream was to replicate his success with Sydney's Parklea markets here in Newcastle. Things began well, but the developer's empire soon began to crumble. Now only Paul's Warehouse calls the store home, and yesterday staff were locked out, telling NBN News the bank had changed the locks, raising questions the site could soon be on the market. The Hunter branch of the Property Council of Australia says due to the building's proximity to the state government's proposed transport interchange, its sale could be the key to revitalising the city centre.
What the government's vision is for that part of the town is for it to be the new commercial hub, so we'd expect to see more commercial and retail and entertainment sort of opportunities.
But the member for Newcastle says the government should see it as a chance to revise its plans for the interchange.
Look, the government's own transport advice says that this interchange site will be very problematic, so the government should use this as an opportunity to review the whole site.
Something that doesn't sit well with the Property Council.
Mr Crackenthorpe seems to be very good at criticising. I'm yet to hear him come up with an alternative solution. We expect to see hundreds of millions of dollars worth of development around that interchange. It's time for Mr Crackenthorpe to start supporting the urban renewal strategy and jobs and growth for the city centre.
Con Constantine couldn't be reached for comment today. Emma Murphy, NBN News.
The lunch rush at Hamilton, Indian curry is a popular choice, and for those in the know, not just for the taste.
Traditional Indians have known about it for years and years and years.
Professor Manohar Garg grew up taking turmeric as a remedy.
If I had some kind of inflammation, I had injury or sprain or bruises, then my mother would put a teaspoonful of turmeric powder into a warm glass of milk and make me drink it.
The flavourless spice, commonly used to colour food, has been popular in India for centuries, not just for cooking, but to promote healing. Now, Professor Garg is combining his heritage and scientific knowledge to test its properties.
We are looking at cutting down the inflammation in the body, and so we are looking at anti-inflammatory properties of the active compound curcumin in turmeric powder.
He's recruiting 80 people classified as pre-diabetic to trial a mix of curcumin and omega-3 fat. The hope is the two compounds combined will pack a powerful punch and may be able to delay or even prevent the onset of type 2 diabetes.
If we can cut down the inflammation, we might be able to regulate insulin production, insulin activity, and control the sugar level better.
To participate in the study, check our website for details. The research team hopes to release findings next year.
Wonderfully designed and a lot of thought being put into the sustainability, and in that sustainability is having the most eco-friendly energy options.
Well, Gavin Morris joins us now for a quick look at the weather. And Gav, things are certainly a bit chilly where you are tonight.
It certainly is, Tash, and it's just amazing to think that this mountain weather that I'm currently experiencing here at Friday Flat in Thredbo is spreading right along the northern New South Wales ranges, and snow could fall down to 600 metres throughout that northern part of the state. It's really quite extraordinary. There's another big weather news story as well. Today I could feel the core of the low pass over there was air mixing, and then we got on the western side of the low and the cold air came in producing snow, but it looks like the Central Coast and Hunter could feel the brunt of that system tomorrow with gale force winds, big seas and the potential for heavy downpours. So stick with us. I'll be doing the weather live from here at Thredbo, and Lauren Tomasi's right behind the camera and she'll be joining me live for the snow report as well. But right now it's back to that very warm studio for now.
It's not Wimbledon or the Australian Open, but on a court in the Hunter town of Cessnock, there's a passion for the game of tennis that other aces can only aspire to.
I love tennis. I just love tennis. And the company's good.
Len Jarrett and Tom Outram are regulars here. Once a week they meet up for a social hit-out at the age of 89 and 90. But make no mistake, these seniors are seasoned players, and even a friendly match-up has a healthy dose of old-fashioned rivalry.
They're fairly good tacticians. They play a pretty good game of tennis.
Len and Tom are remarkably sprightly, and they say they owe their longevity to the game.
I used to watch it and sissies play that game, I thought, but what a shock I got when I finally did pick up the racket. One word, exercise. I'm a great believer in exercise.
As for hanging up their rackets and retiring, well, there's no talk of that just yet.
Phew, I'd like to make 95.
Amanda Douglas, NBN News.
The Matildas went on a record-breaking run at the World Cup, eventually beaten by Japan in the quarter-finals. But midfielder Emily Van Egmond believes the Australian side has room for improvement as it switches its focus to the Olympic qualifiers.
The preparation we had before the World Cup was outstanding, and I think, it really showed going into that tournament, and if we can get some more international games under our belt, I think it's going to, benefit us even more.
The 22-year-old has now played at 2 World Cups. After being selected by former coach Tom Samani as a 17-year-old back in 2011.
A lot of credit's got to go to Tommy, bringing me in at a young age and giving me that experience and what have you, so I'd like to thank him.
Unfortunately for the W League Jets, the former skipper won't be back for the Australian season. She admits she expected to be playing in the US following the World Cup. Instead, she was approached by the European Champions League winners, FFC Frankfurt, and signed a 1-year deal.
The coach was very welcoming, and the situation felt right for me to sign, and I'm very happy and delighted to be going there.
They both had their hands on the trophy this morning, but come Saturday night, only one of these players will get to hold the Kibble Malin Cup.
It's always big preparation for a Maitland game, and the boys are really desperate to get the cup back and want to do it for the crowd and everyone around Newcastle.
Newcastle beat the Mustangs at Maitland early in the season, but still need a win at Broadmeadow to claim the silverware. A victory to the Hunters could also see them scrape into the playoffs, but only if the Sutherland Sharks lose their games this weekend against the Comets and Crusaders.
Sydney are up the top of the table and Central Coast are down the bottom, but they're always a tough team to play. And on the back of a doubleheader, it should be tough for them.
The Mustangs are no longer in finals contention, with injuries and player movement ruining what looked like a promising season.
Beginning of the year, we had playoff expectations and competing and to win the Wartall Championship.
Maitland import Mitch Rita has plenty of motivation to ruin Newcastle's chances of making the finals.
They kind of had my number in the past game. They, held me down to 9 points in this past game, so I'll be looking for a big one on Saturday night.
It's sort of like a military commando style. There'll be things like the Atlas stone, commando crawls, a whole range of different things. It simulates, I guess, being over there, in action, but with a real fun sort of twist.
For more than 50 years, NBN has been the home of television in the Hunter. From the station's inception in the 1960s, Australia's first regional broadcaster has benefited from the region's creativity, producing some memorable variety shows. Now, after a hiatus, that side of the studio has come alive once again. Karen Scully, with more than 25 years' experience at NBN, is the show's producer.
It's fantastic to have the opportunity to be making a locally produced program here again at NBN.
So there is a mashup of news, sport and music, filmed locally and shining the spotlight on some of the Hunter's best young talent.
The talent is exceptional and it blows me away.
So there premieres this Sunday at midday on Go. Amanda Douglas, NBN News.
It's time now to take a look at the weather with Gavin Morris, who's joining us live tonight from Thredbo.
Well, Tash, I do wish you were here. I know how much you love the cold. I wonder if that little red rug of yours is sitting across your lap right now. You'd actually need a really big one. It is cold down here tonight. We arrived this morning. The snow was falling. It's pretty much been coming down all day. It's continued into this evening. And we had these mixing winds over the mountains throughout today. And the snow intensified as the cold air whistled on through these mountains. But first of all, we've got lots to get through. Lauren is joining me in just a moment for the live snow report. But let's check out the weather situation across northern New South Wales and for southeast Queensland. First of all, let's take a look at that 24-hour rainfall. Now, the southeast corner of the nation is not only the coldest place in the country, but it's also the wettest. The heaviest falls are on the New South Wales coast. This is a part of that developing low-pressure cell that is likely to affect the Central Coast and Hunter tomorrow. It's not looking pretty. Now, across the resorts, we had about 15 centimetres, and it's continuing into this evening. Moving to the satellite image, and the latest blast can be seen moving in across the entire broadcast region today, and that's been triggering patchy showers and snow flurries across the ranges. There was also some warm air mixing in with it, so there wasn't a huge amount of that warm air, so this cold outbreak has certainly stomped its way in across the northeast corner of the state. On the synoptic chart, well, that low, it is going to be a little wicked. It is deepening tonight. I felt the core go over the mountains throughout today. It's going to be especially nasty for the Central Coast and the Hunter. We'll have some pretty strong gale force winds and big seas. Along the ranges, the winds are also going to build, and a large high is going to move in across the nation. And as that low pulls away from the coast, the showers will spread north over the weekend, while the interior of the country remains predominantly dry until the middle of next week, actually. Around the nation, our major cities, well, in the southeast, winter's grip. Well, it's got a stranglehold on this part of the country, let me tell you. Keeping the weekly average down, causing the coldest week in about 19 years. Even Brisbane is going to feel the chill throughout tomorrow, and the west is looking mighty fine with plenty of sunshine and mild temperatures, and not bad across the north. Checking today's radar and the temperatures, it was obviously very cold. We had scattered light drizzle patches, which was falling as snow across the higher peaks, and we're getting rid of that final mild air out of the northeast as well, but that big chill is on the way. Forecast winds and the isotherm, this is where things really start to get interesting. The thermoscale is struggling to budge with very little daytime heating, and the entire region is going to remain really cold throughout tomorrow, and we're going to see that deepening low. So those southerly winds are going to sweep in strong to gale force right across the majority of the Hunter and onto the mid-north coast. So tomorrow's forecast, incredibly, snow, can it really happen? Down to 600 metres? The Bureau have gone to 500 metres across the northern ranges. Below that, icy cold patchy showers will fall, and we're going to see some pretty nasty heavy downpours for the Central Coast. We could see some flash flooding extend in around Newcastle as well. For northeast New South Wales and southeast Queensland, looking pretty good. The swell, check this one out. That swell is going to jack up, and it's going to become dangerous, and it's going to do that quickly. Offshore boating is not recommended. Season swell, 4 metres. It's going to be really quite big. Let's move to the tidal information, running out of time here. Look, the highs at about 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, the low at 2:30, and that moon is now waxing, the full moon on the 31st. 7-day forecast, nasty for Central Coast and Hunter, and up north looking pretty good. Come back to me. Let's be joined by Lauren. How are you, Lauren?
Fantastic, Gab. How are you this evening?
Very good. Now, the season is finally underway. We've had an amazing day, so let's get stuck into that snow report.
Absolutely. Let's take a look at the vision. Well, conditions are looking awesome around the mountain with stashes of freshies to be found right around the resort. We have had 70 centimetres of snowfall since the cold came through, and it's looking like more on the way. Of course, on top of Mother Nature, the snowmakers have been doing an incredible job with cold temperatures continuing to stick in those sub-zeros. Now here in Thredbo, 10 lifts are spinning around the resort with word that come the weekend, even more is set to open. Over in Perisher, 28 lifts are spinning around the 3 resort areas, and in Victoria, things are looking good down there. Well, Gav, rug up, click in. It's looking like we've got a fantastic week ahead.
Yeah, well, we're looking forward to a very interesting start to the day tomorrow. There's lots going on in the village. There's a big festival going on in there.
There certainly is. Plenty of snow, plenty of events. Let's have a great weekend.
All right, well, we'll be doing it all again tomorrow night, live right here from Thredbo. Back to the studio.
Welcome to Toronto, where inadequate internet has residents frustrated.
I'd have to use the hotspot on my phone to get broadband here, which is really limiting, of course, and it's costly.
And she's not the only one.
Speeds are quite slow now, to the point where we've had dropouts and we've literally not been able to connect to the internet.
Brenda Hartmeyer runs a computer servicing business and says unreliable internet is affecting productivity.
It probably goes off about 4 or 5 times a week, and it can be off from anything from just a couple of seconds up to 20, 30 minutes.
Now Labor has joined the push, calling for the national broadband network to be fast-tracked.
Tony Abbott and Malcolm Turnbull said that they would get the NBN first. Well, we're still waiting.
Last October, NBN co-announced 150,000 Lake Macquarie homes and businesses would be connected by the end of this year. In December, it added the suburbs of Boolaroo, Belmont and Charlestown to the construction list. Residents in Toronto say they just want to know when they'll be next.
We want to grow this region, and to grow this region we need high-speed internet, and I don't care whether it's Labor or Liberal, we just need it up here.
NBN Co says due to the scale of the project, the rollout of fibre to the node is being undertaken in stages. It hasn't been able to say exactly when Toronto will be connected, but will release a detailed 3-year construction plan in September. Amanda Douglas, NBN News.
This is the machine that's helping to save the lives of those with a heart condition. It's able to detect whether a patient has experienced a heart attack with more clarity than similar tests in the past.
It is important because then we get to diagnose the condition very early and therefore allow for early diagnosis and management of the patient.
Shortland MP Jill Hall chairs the Parliamentary Friends of the Heart Foundation body. Today she was given a rare look at the hospital's pathology lab, part of an initiative to raise awareness of its vital role in healthcare.
Most people don't understand beyond the blood being taken out of their arm, so they'll identify with the blood tube and then it disappears into this black box.
It's here medical scientists work to produce results for up to 5,000 patients every month. The new test makes it easier to detect heart conditions in females, something that's desperately needed, with heart disease the single biggest killer of Australian women.
For the Heart Foundation, one of our big messages in our Warning Signs campaign is to act quickly because time is muscle. So the longer you're waiting for results of any particular test, the more damage is being done to the heart muscle, and the heart muscle doesn't repair.
Emma Murphy, NBN News.
It's been an extraordinary day of icy temperatures and snow from Tasmania all the way to North Queensland. Gavin Morris is amongst it and joins us from Thredbo, where I believe it's very cold, Gav.
It is incredibly cold. It feels like temperature is about -7 degrees. Didn't quite snow in northern Queensland, almost though. The best snow in Queensland in about 8 years, 30 years actually for some locations. Look, the winds are quite strong at the moment. Oh no, the gloves are kind of going up. They're going to be like my ears. I'll be able to snap my ears off in a minute, but get the fingers back in there. But look, it's been an amazing day. Big snowfalls, highways closed, blizzard-like conditions across areas like the Barrington, snow in Tenterfield. I got photos from Tenterfield coming up. I've got some amazing shots of what happened here in Thredbo throughout today. And of course, we'll be checking all of your weekend weather details in around about 20. Otherwise, I'm going to try and finish my snowman here. So back to the studio for now.
If you let a team get away, it's going to be hard to chase them down. So we just got to, like I said, make sure we don't leak any points early if we make errors.
It's more about restoring some pride back in our team after their performance on Monday, and boys are really looking forward to getting down there and ripping in.
I left, nearly 6 years ago now, Newcastle, and I feel like I went away and matured as a person away from football, and obviously got, quicker, stronger, and more mature as a footballer too on the field.
Yeah, we spoke about that a couple of weeks ago actually, about what our goals are and the ambitions that we've got. I think it's time to step it up in a lot of departments.
It's state versus state, with the law on both sides. A winner takes all prizes on offer, and both camps are talking the talk ahead of tomorrow's clash.
Whenever we pull on a maroon jersey, we always lift.
Our guys will be ready and up for it.
New South Wales has enjoyed a decade of dominance against its old foe. But as far as the cane-toed law enforcers are concerned,
we're here to play. We always consider ourselves a competitive state, and we're no different in the Coppers.
desperate for a win, the Maroons have even called on the services of Michael Hagan to rally the troops. looking to draw inspiration from Queensland's recent Origin win.
It's an amazing feeling, and for us to get the opportunity to pull a jersey on with the maroon on it and to replicate hopefully something that they've achieved, that would be awesome.
Meanwhile, the Blues went through their paces in a final training run today.
It's really hard to get selected in this side. There's a lot of players that that try to get in from the police forces. So yeah, this is a real big thing for them.
Blues forward senior constable David Cox once played for the Knights in the under-20s competition, and tomorrow's clash will be a special homecoming.
Played with them back in the day, so it's good to come back to the stadium and play here again.
Tomorrow's match kicks off at Hunter Stadium at 1. Michael Kane, NBN News.
Well, what a day it's been. It's time now to look at the weather with Gavin Morris, who's joining us from the snow in Thredbo tonight.
Thank you very much, Tash, and it is a little chilly here. It's actually the coldest place in Australia at the moment. It's about -4. It feels like about -7 degrees here at the moment. The wind chill factor has kicked in. There's a little bit of snow that is blowing through. But first of all, I just want to let you know that everyone at NBN, we know how much you love your local weather, and we'll get back to that. It only ever happens when I get out on location that we'll give you a broad scale weather like we're doing tonight and like we've done last night. So we'll be back to your local weather forecast tomorrow night, Sunday, and of course I'll be back on Monday as well. But if you do want to check out all of your local details, you can log on, go online, and we've got all of your local weather info right there. But we'll take a look at the whole situation in just a moment. What about this photo? I had to put this one in. This came to us from Tenterfield. This is on the Northern Ranges towards the Queensland border. I love it. The weather rock. It even has there, if the rock is white, it is snowing, and it has been snowing. Went all the way into southern Queensland, an incredible amount of snow, almost 10 centimetres for southern Queensland, and that's the best snow there in about 30 years. But what about the local weather situation? Well, let's take a look at what's been happening over the past 24 hours, first of all, with the rain. Heavy falls right throughout the southern coastal areas of New South Wales, and of course that produced these blizzard-like conditions that went up over the southern tablelands, and it actually closed down the highway. There were people trying to get here to ski today, and they didn't make it. They were stuck there because they had a good 15 centimetres across the road there around Berrima. It was really quite extraordinary. Let's move to the satellite image now and look at the culprit of this latest outbreak. It is a big low. It's spiralling around in the Tasman, and it's beginning to move away. Now, we've seen some cloud linger over the western side of the divide, just getting caught on the mountains, and it produced a little bit of rain there as well. Of course, falling snow. Berrima, amazingly, had snow as well, just near Tamworth, so extraordinary stuff. Let's look at the synoptic chart now. This big old low is going to move offshore, but there's still going to be a little bit of cold air left in behind it. So some of that cold air will be pushing in around the central coast and Newcastle. So still very chilly, but most of the showers are drying up. It's just going to be somewhat patchy as it moves in across the northern New South Wales coast. Inland, it is going to be mostly fine. Let's go around the country now, look at our major cities. Starting to warm up ever so slightly. Predominantly, we're going to see fine conditions prevail across most of our majors, and if you want warmth, you have to head north into the northern tropics. The west, not too bad as well. Looking at today's radar and today's temperatures, well, it was cold. Some amazing temperatures there recorded right across the entire region, so very chilly as that low buzzed past the central coast of Newcastle. We also had some rain that streamed on in. Let's look at the forecast winds and isotherm for tomorrow. It's a predominant southerly, and that's going to make sure that temperatures remain low as well. And the isotherm still struggling to get some decent colours on there. So again, it is going to be very, very cool indeed. Forecast rain. Now, we may see a couple of showers along the coast, but certainly not much. There's just not much in it at all from here on in. The occasional shower, which will not penetrate on the western side of the divide. So from here on in, looks like it's going to dry out right throughout the inland areas. But you can see that it is going to be very cold, and you can expect some very cold overnight temperatures and early morning frosts. Look at the swell. Well, it is going to be really quite solid. It's going to be big, and it's going to be thumping on in, so really quite dangerous yet again. Season swell. Can't really recommend boating. It's still going to be a little bit wicked out there, and for surfers, we'll have to get into those southern protected corners. There's all of your tidal information. Varies a little bit up and down the coast, so check your local details if you need to look at that more closely. The 7-day forecast. Well, we've got coastal showers for Newcastle, Central Coast, Inland, just cold in the mornings, but mostly fine. And further north, taking a look at that 7-day forecast right throughout northern New South Wales and southeast Queensland, pretty good. Let's quickly have a look at this snow vision for today. It was beautiful in Thredbo this morning. It is one of those amazing days where we had all of that lovely icing sugar snow just in the trees and throughout the village and over the mountains. So it was beautiful stuff. I want to thank the media team coming in, Lauren. Wave goodbye. Thank you to Susie Diver and all of the Thredbo media team for looking after us over the last couple of days. Have yourself a wonderful weekend.
A win for Nigel Milsom that many are hoping could lead to a win for the Newcastle arts community.
It's good that the focus is on Newcastle, and hopefully some more of our young artists will be given opportunities.
The portrait of lawyer Charles Waterstreet outdid 47 other finalists to take out the prestigious Archibald Prize. And Kathy Tate says the Society of Artists Newcastle couldn't be prouder.
We actually have 3 of his works in the collection, and one of them is very reminiscent of the actual painting.
The accolade helping to cement the region's reputation as a breeding ground for Archibald winners.
You know, when you look at the past, our Dobells, our Olsons, we have a long tradition of producing many, many artists, and we are still producing them.
Mrs Tate believes Newcastle could ride the coattails of Milsom's success and push for the state and federal government to recommit to the $21 million art gallery redevelopment. She says the gallery houses the most significant public art collection outside of Sydney and should reflect the high calibre of work coming out of the region.
This gallery needs to be redeveloped, and then we could have more exhibitions like this of our local artists.
Georgina Smythe, NBN News.
Even on a brisk winter's morning, Newcastle's coastline is still a drawcard for many. After 9 months of construction, Stage 1 of the Shortland Esplanade between Nobby's and the Ocean Baths is now complete.
I think it's really good because before it used to be quite squashy, trying to get past, and now we've got lots of space to walk.
We go for our walk every morning, and to see what's happening is just wonderful.
Everybody seems to be enjoying it. They've done a great job.
Council has restricted traffic to one way to provide a wider footpath and dedicated on-road cycleway.
The thing that's particularly good about this end of the project being completed is people are now starting to see the consistency of what we're going to achieve from this northern end here at Nobby's all the way through to Merriweather over the next 2 to 3 years.
Construction of Stage 2 from the Baths to Zara Street is already underway and includes major cliff stabilisation works. It should be finished by December. But Council says the next section after that is dependent on federal funding.
We will be applying under the Commonwealth Stronger Regions funding for a $23 million program, which will help us do the work then from Zara Street along Shortland Esplanade and into the commencement of King Edward Park.
Renee Feder, NBN News.
I really want to support the fashion industry here and what they're doing. We're potentially looking at a fashion festival in the new year as well. So yeah, there's just lots of talented people that don't really have a medium that's dedicated to them.
Philippa Anderson is on a mission to produce the goods on the biggest world stage. Tomorrow she'll begin a new journey, taking part in events in America and El Salvador in a bid to achieve her future goal.
It's going to be quite tough in the water, I mean, because every girl has flown there and they really want to do well in it.
A good performance on this trip will go a long way in her bid to make the World Championship Tour, but a lack of finance nearly saw her dreams come to an end. Only recently, she launched a crowdfunding campaign, raising nearly $10,000.
The main thing for us is flights and accommodation. We try to do it as cheap as we can, but sometimes just flights, you just can't get them that cheap. So it definitely does take a chunk out of your wallet.
A great result in Mexico last month moved Anderson to 12th spot in the qualifying series, and she believes the best is yet to come.
Even when I think I'm at my best, you know, my coach or my trainer in the gym, like he'll just say something and I'm like, oh, I didn't even think of that. So yeah, I'm always going to be learning.
Michael Kane, NBN News. It was Wanderers Old Boys Day and the home side were keen to put on a show right from the get-go. Winger Bill Coffey cleaning up from the breakdown as he made a beeline to the try line. University was struggling in defence and the two Blues were cashing in, this time through fullback Callum McDonald, who couldn't be stopped from 10 out. Down 14-0, the Seahorses were starting to go to water. Luke Simmons did all the hard work to supply Cal Groth with the perfect pass. Bill Coffey was having a field day, this individual effort leaving the visitors in tatters. The Wanderers going on to win the match 59 points to 7. In other matches, Southern Beaches were too good for the Gropers. Merriweather had a 22-point win over Singleton, and Hamilton kept their undefeated record intact against the Blacks. Michael Kane, NBN News.